And we are live on the Frugal Crafter YouTube channel. I'm Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter, along with Sarah.
Hi!
And hopefully you can hear us well. We're going to be doing a mystery painting, so we're not going to tell you what we're painting. I'm sure you guys will catch on pretty soon. But I thought it would be fun. I've been in kind of a funk, and it was actually my husband's idea not to tell anybody what I'm painting and just start painting and let it happen. So right off the bat, you're going to want to have some paper towels handy, either 2 buckets of water or a divided water bucket, and your basic set of paints. I'm just going to switch my screens here so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to begin by wetting the top half of the paper with a big, soft, round brush. This is a Creative Mark Mimic. So as we're going along today, if you have any questions, you can type the word question in all caps. Excuse me. In the chat, and the moderators will help you, or if it's a question for me, Sarah will relay it to me. Please keep your questions for me watercolor related, because that's what we're using today. And I wanted to show you my palette. Actually, you can go ahead and wet the whole paper. I want to show you my palette because I was puttering around in my studio yesterday trying to think of something inspiring to do with not any luck, and I was just kind of looking through my supplies because sometimes that inspires me, and I had seen my palette of Mission Gold paints, which was in this uncovered Dr. P.H. Martin palette, which is more intended for liquid watercolors, and I saw that I had an extra core tin that came with a set of core watercolors back when they used to give you the big tins when you ordered the set of 6. And I took a hot knife and I cut down my palette so it fit inside of here. Now I have a covered palette because before this just sat inside my big M. Graham palette and I never used it. So this will give it its own space, and we'll give that a whirl today.
Lindsay, could you maybe tilt one of the lights a little bit away? It's kind of glary, like on the palette and on the paper.
Oh, okay.
It's very.
Is that
from my angle?
Oh, it'll take a minute for it to catch up a minute.
I'm sure. I think it just a light needs to be tilted.
Yeah, I think that's a little better. Hopefully it's not too dark over there. I thought about filming downstairs, but it's still so cold down there, and I'm so sick of being cold. I can't take it. I can't take it anymore.
That was me the other day. I was like, I'm done.
Oh,
I'm done.
So cold. As soon as the stream's over, though, I'm gonna go outside because it's gonna be the warmest day for like 2 weeks today.
That's what I'm doing too. I'm going to go get my book, and I'm going to have an adult beverage, and I'm going to put a lawn chair out in the middle of the sun, and that is where I'm going to sit for like an hour and just enjoy.
Nice. I'm gonna go for a nice long walk, so I might stop by.
Oh, please do. I'll be out back.
I haven't used these paints in a while, and my cobalt seems to have a funky film on it, so just give me a second here. I have found a trick, though. I was using some student grade colors the other day, and I'll actually share it with you. I had it was Prussian blue, and I could not get it to release. So what I did was I used one of these brushes are called scrubbers. If you buy the scrubber that's called a scrubber, from Creative Mark, it is so abrasive it'll kill your paper. But if you end up with weird paint that gets like a weird hard film on it, like a Viridian is one that does that a lot, you can use this to kick up that paint and bring it back. Typically you won't have that problem, but Prussian blue sometimes, Viridian, and I have this cobalt, it's got a funky film on it, probably because the binder may be separating, but that's a great use of these scrubbers. They're way too abrasive to use on your paper, but for getting your paint back into a workable state, they are perfect. So I've got some cobalt blue here. I want to have a nice bright blue, and I think I'm going to grab maybe just a little bit of, let's use some Indian red here, just to kind of tone it down a little bit without graying it too much. And we are going to put some paint here at the top of the paper. And we're going to pull that down a little bit to the center, but we want the concentration up at the top. So you've probably determined that we are doing a sky. So we've got part of the mystery solved. How many people do we have hanging out with us today?
We have 283.
Oh, nice.
Oh, 285.
Nice, great. All right, now I'm gonna grab some Prussian blue. There, ooh, that's pretty. I'm gonna add that right in there. Add some of that into our sky too. And my paper is tipped so that it can run a little bit. And I'm going to grab a little bit more of the Indian red to make myself a little bit of a darker value to tap in here and there. And I'm just going to tip it up and let it run. Now I'm going to grab a paper towel and I am going to dab out some clouds. And any puddles, if you have any puddles, you can go ahead and blot those off. And we're going to leave that be for now. And now I'm going to move to, I think I'll use a flat. I got a 3/4 inch flat here. And I'm going to grab some of that Prussian blue right into that same puddle that I had been using. And I'm going to grab a little bit of the cobalt. And I'm also going to grab a little bit of lemon yellow. I'm going to put that in its own well. And I'm going to mix a little bit of that into our color here. And then just about a little bit above halfway, I am going to start tapping in a stream or a river. Just going to get a little bit of the outsides of it. Blot any feathering I have right there at the top. We are working on an entirely wet paper, so we are going to have feathering, and that's fine. I'm going to grab some more Prussian. And I'm going to go in and fill in some of this area. I'm working on cotton watercolor paper, so I'm not getting blooms. If you're working on a cellulose paper, you may be getting some blooms here. So just keep a dry brush handy that you can lay in there if you do get blooms. I'm going to grab some cobalt. Because we've got water here, it's going to reflect what's in the sky. I think I'm going to bring that side of the stream up a little bit more. And I can gently wipe it with my paper towel. If I'm using cotton, if you're using cellulose, then I would just dry your brush off and I would just pull off a little bit of paint, kind of making little horizontal ripples that way. It's okay if it streaks off on either side because we're going to be covering that over. So at this point, I am going to dry this and then we'll proceed with more layers. So if you have any questions while I'm drying, then go ahead and type them in the chat.
Starshine Soldier, have you or anyone else used the Raphael Precision watercolor brushes? Are they comparable to the Mimic Sable?
I haven't used them, but if anybody in chat has used the Raphael Precision brushes, please pop in there and share your experience.
Mermaid Aquita, what is your favorite watercolor sketchbook?
I really like the Fabriano Venice book.
Angel T, do you ever paint a grisaille first?
Usually not with watercolor because it muddies it. That would be more a technique for oils.
Larkoti Sitharaman, I use Artist Loft's watercolor paper, which is the same weight as Strathmore, but I find it does not take as much water as the Strathmore one. What do I do?
I think Artist Loft products, some are good, but a lot of them aren't very good. So I think I'd probably use them just for wet on dry techniques, and I would switch to a better paper for your wet on wet techniques.
Jerry Dower, you mentioned the core and mission gold paints. Do they react the same spreading out? And is that a better kind of paint for a loose watercolor style?
I really like core for loose watercolor style. They probably have the greatest flow. I think their binder is a little bit lighter and just helps the flow a little bit better. But it really doesn't matter. Once you're in the professional line of watercolors, the differences are very subtle between brands.
Christina Martin, how long can you work on wet paper before it dries?
It depends on how dry your home is. It depends on how much water you used and what kind of paper. You can generally work about 15 to 20 minutes in normal conditions indoors on your paper. Now I am going to work on the clouds a little bit more. And so I have a number 14 round. It's smaller than that number 30 round I was just using. I want something that's not too pointy, something that's a little bit fluffier. Oh, I actually have this new one too. Oh, let's try this. I've never used this before. This is a synthetic mop. It's one of the new Menta ones that I think they're for $10 right now at AC Moore. And I am going to use some of this color we used for the stream, maybe add a little bit more light red in there, a little bit more cobalt, and put some shadows in some of the clouds. Maybe look like there might be a storm coming. And I just think this shape of this brush might be kind of fun to do this with. So I'm going to paint the bottom of the cloud with that mop, and then I'm going to go in with the round and just kind of soften the top of that. So I've got the shadow on the bottom more, and then it just kind of softens up. I am getting some back run there, so I might not have dried my paper quite enough. Let's go in with a little bit more paint and see what we can do here. We succeed or we learn. Ooh, maybe I'll use this bigger mop here. And use a dry mop and spread it up with a dry mop. My paper feels dry, feels warm to the room temperature to the touch, so hopefully I'm not going to end up with a bunch of back runs. If worse comes to worse, if I end up with a big mess up here, I can always just re-wet it. And some of this will be covered over with other elements, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Oh, I'm kind of liking that. The more I let go, the better I like it. The more I try to hold on tight and control it too much, the less I like it. So.
Anna Rose Brown, how do you decide what watercolor palette you are going to use?
Well, it's kind of just what I feel like using. I mean, like I mentioned before, there's not a huge difference between artist grade paints, but I might know that I have certain colors on a certain palette, and so that might make me grab that, or I might know that a certain line is softer or a certain line is more vibrant, and that might influence the colors that I pick to use. But I mean, you don't need to have multiple color palettes. If you have one that's got your basic colors, you're going to be fine. Now this Menta goat hair mop is a little bit stiffer than other mops that I've used, so I'm actually using that to my advantage and kind of scrubbing out some clouds too. I'm kind of liking that. It's got a nice, almost like filbert type taper to it. But it's long enough that it's not really stiff, but you can definitely scrub with it and get a little bit of a softening. I'm trying to make whatever shapes I do for clouds larger at the top of my paper and smaller as they get down, so I'll have a little bit of a little bit more scale. And I'm just having fun with it. And you guys know how it's supposed to look, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'll add a little more color in there. I feel like I have a very cavalier attitude today.
It's, before vacation, you're allowed to.
Okay, that's much better. Now, I'm going to work on the stream a little bit more and give the sky time to dry. And I'm going to go back to my my flat brush and Prussian blue. This should be dry. Although I'm not trusting of it, because last time I thought it was really dry. I think it's dry. It feels room temperature to the touch. I'm just going to go in with my Prussian blue here. And I am going to give myself a fairly clean horizon line up here. And sharpen some stuff up. Pull some of that paint out a little bit. So you don't want your brush, you want your brush clean and damp for this. If you have it too wet, you're going to get back runs. You just want to be able to pull that paint out.
Carol Ann O'Byrne, if you could only use one kind of watercolor, one brush, and one brand of paper, what would they be?
Oh, arches for the paper. Watercolor brush, probably Creative Mark Mimic Faux Squirrel. And paint, oh boy, probably M. Graham, just because I know I've used them the longest, and even though I use them much in tutorials because my palette is too big for my table, they would probably be the one, but for what it's worth. I mean, that's an opinion. It's definitely not anything to, religiously go by. I've got to tip this up to make sure my horizon line is straight. I think that's straight. I'm actually going to wet this. I don't feel like I have enough color in here at this point. I feel like I want to do another wet into wet wash. It's getting a little streaky there. And I want to make sure I get enough of the sky colors reflecting here, so I am going to grab some cobalt here. And some Prussian mixed into the cobalt. The edge is a little bit darker. That's quite a bit better. And I know I'm going to need some sap green coming up, so I think I'd like to introduce that into the water while it's wet.
Rita Walters, I use Canson XL watercolor paper and Marie's watercolor paints. How can I get the paint to flow? Should I wet the back of the paper too?
You're going to struggle with that paper and those paints. The Canson XL cannot take too much water or it's going to want to pill. So you're probably better off just to wet the area on the front that you're going to be working into. And then the Marie's paints have quite a bit of filler in them. So you could add a little ox gall or a little dish soap to your rinse water, and that will help it have a little bit more flow. But I would say if you can figure out what colors you like to use the most, maybe upgrade those particular colors when you can, and that will help tremendously. Going to like a Winsor Newton Cotman or a Van Gogh or Grumbacher Academy, they're not really expensive, but they're going to give you quite a bit more, a better paint for your money. And you can use those Marie paints, you can add white to them and make gouache and do gouache effects, and they'd be great for that. But for watercolors, they're a challenge to use for that reason. Okay, so I am going to dry this because the sky still is a little bit damp. I think my horizon line's a little crooked. It's kind of tough for me to tell sitting down. I think I'll fix that before I get too far. There we go. This can help you get that reflective look, wiping it with a paper towel if your paper's cotton. Oh, there, that's better. I didn't get it dark enough before to do the wiping technique and have it look the way I wanted to. Just try to keep, when you wipe it, try to keep it going with the horizon line and not going diagonal or anything. Okay, I think that's dry enough. I have no good place to put my dryer. I don't want to set it on my lap and catch my pants on fire.
Yeah, that would be
That would be good. Alright, so what I'm going to do is just make a little bit of an indication. I'm just taking some of that light red, mixing it in my greenish blue color there, just to get myself a neutral. I try not to add too many colors. I try to limit it. The colors that I'm using are from the Pure Pigment set from Mission Gold, and I chose them because they all were single pigment colors, so I don't have to worry about, I know that whatever I mix will be nice and vibrant from them. So I'm just sketching the edge of a mountain there just so I know how much space I have to work in between this in this valley here.
We have a lot of people asking what brushes you're using. The only ones listed are the Mimics.
Oh yes, I also have some of the Mentas, but they are so new that they're not online anywhere yet, but AC Moore has them. They should be coming out to more places, but their stores haven't started stocking them yet. So you can always ask your favorite art supply store to stock them. But when I saw them at AC Moore, I was really excited. And I contacted the company. They said they're just really new. They're not exclusive to AC Moore, but they're so new, nobody else has come out with them yet. So, okay, I am going to go back to my flat brush, and I'm going to grab a little of that light red. I think I'm going to grab some yellow ochre too.
We still have somebody asking about the blue brush with white bristles.
That's a Menta. That is a Menta. The small one is a 1/2 inch. And the larger one is a 1 inch by Royal and Langnickel. Let's see, I'm going to do this a faraway mountain peak up here with this kind of yellow ochre color. And another one there. I'll bring another one over here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that light red. I'm going to grab my 1/2 inch angular here and grab a little of that mixed gray that I made with the light red, and you can use burnt sienna if you don't have light red or Venetian red, any of those earthy reds. And I have that mixed with cobalt and probably a little bit of Prussian that was left over. And I'm using that to pull down some of the colors from that yellow. So we've got kind of this the warm tip of the mountain, because I can't take any more snow-capped mountains, guys. The snow-capped mountains are they're done for the year. And the mountain in front here, so I'm just masking off that. Not masking it off, but just kind of blocking it out. And I like when you mix grays, because like the colors can separate a little bit on the palette, and then when you like charge them onto the paper, they can separate a little bit on the paper, and you just end up with this really pretty natural look. Grab a little of the light red on its own, I think, because that would give us like a triad of color. So we had our either of our blues and then a yellow ochre, and then we have our light red for the red. It's a very earthy, kind of brownish red, but still it helps the other colors pop a little bit.
Tara Blinkhorn. Hi from the UK. I have been painting a few months, and tonight we'll be painting on 100% cotton for the first time. Any tips or things to look out for?
Just enjoy, and don't worry about it being like too precious. Just I would say enjoy. Just keep in mind it's going to your colors aren't going to slide around on your paper as much as they do on cellulose. So that you may know they might not seem to flow quite as well or move quite as much, but you'll get used to that, and you'll find they do actually flow better on the cotton once you're used to it. I'm grabbing some of that sap green and some Prussian blue and adding it into that dark mix because I don't want it really dark. And that's going to go in this kind of far away mountain area as well. We don't need too many details back here because it's far away. We just want to kind of get some masses of color and shadow. A little yellow ochre in here for a little change. You have a little contrast and a little difference in your colors to make it interesting. I'm going to carry that over here. Have a lot of fun with your brush strokes and your colors when you're doing mountains. And so just by putting those two guidelines on there, it gives me a little bit of a stopping point. It shows me how far I can go. The thing to watch out for, if you get the Mission Gold Pure Pigment set, their colors are really vibrant. So you might have to mix 3 or 4 colors together before you get an earthier tone. Which I think it's great. It's easier to dull down a color than it is to make it brighter again, but if you're not used to that, or you're coming from a student grade palette, it might feel a little bit overwhelming, and you might end up taking out more color than you need and then end up wasting color. So just be prepared. Take a little bit at a time because the color is a lot stronger. And use your values or how dark or light something is to get different depths and textures. I'm going to grab, I'm just going to kind of clean my brush off in that puddle and grab a little more Prussian blue. And if you don't have Prussian, you can use Phthalo. It's going to be a little bit more vivid. And I'm just going to sneak in another little bit of mountains, far, far away mountains. There. And you want to cool that down when you want something to be in behind and further away. So that's why I added the blue to the green, because that makes it cooler and pushes it back. And I could even add a little bit over here. I think I will, because I feel like everything got kind of flattened out. That will give it a little more scale. Going to go over with a soft brush there and see if I can fuzz that out a little bit, because it's further away, so it won't be quite so crisp. And then for this mountain in front here, I am going to start off with a little bit of yellow ochre. I'm going to add a little bit of my light red and my Prussian blue to that, to kind of gray it down a little bit. And I'm going to put on some kind of like, I want this to be kind of rocky areas. It's a little dark, so I'm going to add some water to that.
Amber Klingen, what are the top few things you consider when picking a picture to paint beyond subject matter?
Mainly I usually have something in mind that I want to do, and then I find some reference photos to kind of help support the idea. But I will see if I can see the details that I need clearly. That's probably my biggest thing. I'm gonna let this dry, work on this section here, and then come back to it so I don't have to dry it with the heat tool. That would be my biggest thing. Sometimes if I am like, I'm not feeling like I'm ready to paint something, maybe I'm just having some downtime and I just feel like, browsing, I might go through like Unsplash or Pixabay or something and just kind of browse through and see if I can find some things maybe for later, or just kind of spark my imagination, and then I will arrange those things that I find in albums. On Unsplash they have a tool called Collections, so if you're logged in, you can actually put everything into a collection. It's like it's kind of like a file folders. You can organize them, and that way you can come back to them later, and you can find them again really easily. So that's a lot of times what I'll do there is I'll make a collection. I'm warming this up with more water, a little more yellow ochre as I come forward here. And this is basically, I'm painting areas that are going to be kind of like bald, rocky areas. Because sometimes I might be inspired by everything I see, and then other times I can't find anything that I would want to paint. So it's like I was having one of those times this morning. It's like, oh, I was looking at all kinds of stuff and I couldn't find anything that, was inspiring to me.
Which now, and you're going to be on vacation and take a week off, and then when you come back,
yeah,
you'll have some experiences and some relaxation. You'll be all re-inspired.
I hope so. I hope the weather's warmer. I think that is really weighing on me this year.
Winter spring has been very slow to come. I was actually watching the news last night, the night before, and the weather guy was saying that we've been below temperature except for the first day of April. Every day we've been below our normal temperatures.
I'm just kind of dabbing in this kind of light tan color just to block out some of those areas. Just to be safe, I am going to hit this with the heat tool because I'm not sure if that's had a chance to dry or not.
Tara Blinkhorn, do you wash your brushes out after every painting or just a quick rinse?
I just rinse them in my water bucket. If you look at my water bucket now, you'll see, well, actually, I don't know if you can really tell in this light, but one half is really clean. My bucket I've been using for like 20 years, so the bucket looks nasty. But one half has clean water, the other half is dirty water. I just swish it in the clean side and put it away. I might wash them every couple of months if I feel like some residue of something in a brush, I'll wash it with soap and water for my watercolor brushes, but other than that, I just leave them. With oil or acrylics, I wash them really well with a brush soap afterwards, but I don't find that it's necessary for watercolor. Only if you feel that you've got like a little residue in the brush and it just doesn't come out when you rinse it. Okay, so coming back to here, I'm going to go back to my 1/2" angle brush, and I'm going to grab some sap green. Now, look how bright this sap green is. This is a sap green I mixed from 2 colors in the pure pigment line, and it's still so bright that I need to alter it before I can really use it because it's just too strong. It's an unnatural green. So I'm going to add a little bit of light red to that, and that gives me a nice earthy olive color. And that I am going to kind of dab in. And that's going to give us the impression of some trees growing. I can grab a little more yellow ochre and dab that up here. And that warm yellow ochre will also bring that chunk of mountains a little bit further towards you. I think the key when you've got a scene that you're trying to paint that's got so many like shades of blues and greens is to vary your intensity and your color temperature as much as you can, so that way you can have a little bit of diversity even though what you're painting is so similar. The colors are so similar. Now I'm going to grab some more of that green, but I'm going to grab some Prussian blue and make myself a nice deep kind of teal color. And that is going to be at the bottom of this mountain that's gotten a little bit more shady. Just be careful of your horizon line there that you have at the edge of the water. And I am going to switch brushes. Well, I haven't even used this one yet. This one has a little sizing in it still. This is one of the new Mintas. And I'm going to do the sap green and the Prussian blue and add that right down here and just kind of flick it up. Don't put too much water on your brush or you will get back runs in any of that damp paint that's underneath. You want to feel the brush, you should feel it kind of dragging on the surface of the paper and grabbing the texture. It should almost feel like it's too dry. And that's going to give you that nice bit of like tree texture because it will be look kind of rough looking. I'm going to grab a little bit of that and I'm going to pull it into the water as well. little more pressure. There's not a defined reflection in the water from any of the mountains. You do see a little bit of a like a color cast in here, but there's not a big defined reflection. But I do feel like towards the back there is either you're seeing down into the depths of the water or something. There's definitely something there, so I want to go ahead and make sure I have that represented. Plus this is a really big area, so it'll help give it a little more direction. Bring some of that over to the edges here, and I can add a little more blue to that, and I can keep working it around the shoreline. And what I see, and I will reveal the reference photo at the end, but what I see
people have been thinking that you've been doing this just out of your head.
Oh, geez, I should have left it like that. Then people would have thought I was all creative.
Well, you are creative.
I'm just pulling little individual tree points. So the only thing that's being reflected really are just individual trees right at the shoreline. So I'm just pulling down little shapes there. It was almost going to be picked out of my brain because I was having a hard time deciding on anything. It's like I didn't know what was going to become of the show today. So these just little picks that I'm pulling down, those are just going to be like random trees. And we're going to add a little bit of yellow ochre. And we can add a little bit of lemon because we did use lemon right off the bat at the beginning. So this will be a nice way to reintroduce it. And we can do that over here because this side is getting more light. So I'm going to go along the shoreline just like I did before. And
Can you slide the bottom of the painting up just a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
There we go. And then I'm just going to pull down those shapes again. They'll be bigger as you get towards the bottom of your paper. You can really just kind of dry brush them out too. Use the side of your brush so that you don't get anything too distinct. Less is more, just kind of give it the hint. I'm grabbing a little more Prussian blue because I feel like it's too warm up there. I'm just going to glaze over a cool shadow. All right, so now we're going to work on these front mountainy areas. I'm going to go back to my larger flat brush. You can use a large angle, doesn't really matter. This area is darker. This area is lit up more with the sun. So I think that let's work on this area first because this area is probably the focal point, more of the focal point. So we'll do that last once we've got everything else in there and established. I'm going to grab a bunch of Prussian blue and some sap green and a little bit of light red. I have this nice inky color here, and I'm going to put that in this area.
Moon Griffin. I've been using the Jane Davenport Brights palette, and I'm wanting to mix a Payne's gray type color. Any suggestions?
Gosh, I'm trying to think right off the bat what is in that palette. I don't think there's any neutrals. I would probably take, I think there's one called like Ink. Maybe it's in that palette. It's really like a dark indigo kind of color. I would take that and add a little bit of a, I don't think there's an orange in that palette, so I'd probably have to do red and yellow. I'm going to grab a little bit, I'm actually going to do this on another brush so I don't have to wash all that out. I'm going to grab some yellow ochre and a little bit of that sap green, light red mix there, and just kind of tip this tree here because there's a little bit of light getting in there. Tip this mountain with that rather. And we'll pick up a little bit of that mix with that same brush and pull that up into it because that's a little too bright. And I think I'm going to bring that mountain down a little bit more into the water, because I felt like I wanted to narrow up this part of the river as well. I can add more reflections under that if I need to. Okay, and I'm going to stick with these two brushes, and this is where it's going to be the darkest now, so I'm just going to go right in and tap that in. Now I'm going to grab some more sap green. I'm mixing it right into that big pot of color because we're going to be using quite a bit, and I'm going to grab some more yellow ochre. That just about makes a chrome oxide green, which is usually a color I hate, but since I mixed it myself, I'm fine with it. I don't want to cover up all of the tan that I painted in there because some I want to be kind of like boulders.
Tara Blinkhorn, if you were only allowed to choose 2 colors for a watercolor painting, what would they be?
They'd probably be ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I'm going to grab some light red and kind of add that right into the wet paint and let it kind of mix so you get these kind of like softer pockets of earth tone. And I'm picking that same color up with my little brush. And I'm actually going to grab a scrubber because I kind of cut my area where I wanted to have some boulders up a little bit too much, so I'm just going to scrub out some of that. Some of those little lines I put in there. Once that dries, I can sketch on some of the boulder lines a little bit better. And I think this time I'm actually going to be a little bit more deliberate with the areas I want to be rocks. Mix up a little bit of a gray color with my light red and Prussian blue and just kind of sketch in some kind of like bold rocky ledge areas here. And that way it'll be easier for me to avoid them. Grabbing a little more yellow ochre. Gonna just add a little bit of warmer trees in some spaces where I want it to be a little more highlighted. Nothing's gonna be super bright over here though. And I'm going to put in some kind of juicy paint where I want to let the details kind of smudge out. And I can add some more green. I'm using sap green and Prussian blue. And I'm just going to kind of drip that into the wet areas and let them, let the colors kind of flow and create their own passages of darker and lighter. I'm going to go to my little round brush here, and I'm going to grab some yellow ochre and some sap green and dab in a little bit of that lighter color down here.
Mo Lazar, I know you leave your paints in your palette after painting and reuse, but do you ever keep mixed paints you've made and reuse?
I clean off the mixing area, but I leave the paints in the wells alone. Once I'm done a painting, I wash off the mixed area. And unless I mixed up a big pot of like sap green, yes, I would keep that because that was, it's uncontaminated. It's a mix, but it's doesn't have anything I don't want in the mix. All right, I'm gonna let that dry, and I'm gonna work over here. I'm gonna go back to my 3/4 inch flat, and I'm gonna mix up. I'm gonna take the light red, and I'm gonna take some cobalt to get myself kind of a more neutralized gray. And since it has a real purple cast to it there, oops, you can't see that mixing area. I'll bring it over so you can. Since that's got a really purpley undertone, I'm going to add some yellow ochre to it. There, now we have a nice neutral gray there. And I am going to add some shadow to some of the rocks back here. Very ledgy and rocky in this area. Grab a little more yellow ochre, a little bit of that gray in the yellow ochre, and I can warm up some of the rocks as they come forward. And then I can go in with some greens. I do sap green and some yellow ochre. And I'm just gonna kind of skip around with this lighter color first, and then I will go in around with some of the darker colors, more vivid colors. This also has like looks like late day sun on it, so it's a much more golden green. Tapping it on. I'm not going to get a lot of texture right off the bat, but it should, but that's the technique that we'll be adding the colors in with. I'm going to grab some more light red and some more sap green. And this color is going to be going in now. It's almost like a hooker's green. Less texture further away. and you'll get more texture as you come forward. Letting some of this creep up the mountain. Just using the edge, tiny edge of my brush for this. Just the like the corner of it rather. Just kind of rock your brush so it kind of catches the texture of the paper. A lot of that over here, but this one time you can be a little bit more deliberate with how you kind of tap your brush down so that you get the look of treetops. You kind of just a little wiggle at the shoreline, just kind of tap it up, and then turn your brush sideways and tap it up sideways and get the individual trees there. You just hit with the corner, and you'll get the little tiny trees, individual trees. And it's okay if you get a little bit of shore showing, because you would see like little bits of rock or dirt there at the edge. You can have more or less of the bald rock showing through. It's up to you. I grab a little Prussian blue and add it to my mix, maybe a little bit of that cobalt and light red as well, and tap in some darker shadowed trees here and there. You want some variety. That's the only thing to think about, really. And you want some texture. And then I'm going to take this brush with whatever I happen to have on it still from painting these trees, and I'm just going to kind of tap along the water edge. And I think I'll grab a clean brush and just kind of flick it down a little bit. Might even go in and add a little bit more because I like that. I think that looks good. Now if you don't have any little sliver of light there, you can use a gel pen or a pastel pencil or a color pencil to bring that in. I think I've got enough of a little bit of a sliver there, but if you feel like you need some dimension there that you don't have, you can do that. Now I'm going to dry this area here because I also want to do some of this tree work over there. If anybody has any questions while I'm drawing, go ahead and type them in the chat. I kind of like the little blossom, little cauliflowers that happen there because I think it gives me a nice tree texture.
And it could be a fish coming up to get a minnow.
It could be. Or an eagle swooping down to get a fish.
That's right. Mother Nature at its finest.
Yeah. How many people do we have?
We watching? Have 307.
Oh, nice. Over 300. Cool.
Hmm?
I said over 300. Cool.
Yes. We've had a nice steady over 300 for most of the video.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we didn't do any drawing on this, so for the folks that say they don't like to draw, they don't know how to draw, there's no drawing here.
You don't have to.
Nope. Alright. And we'll do pretty much the same technique over here. I am going to add a little Prussian blue into the mix and a little bit of the light red just to deepen it a little bit because it's not too light over here. So when I tap my brush down, I am going to tap with I'm tapping with the bottom corner and lightening up my pressure on the top corner, so I do end up with kind of like trees and shadows, but I don't have any, you know, it kind of makes like a triangle on its own, and I don't really have to do much other than just tap that down, and it gives me the impression of shadows between trees. It's like I mentioned, over here is a little bit brighter and more focal point, so we don't want to do too much over here. And then I can scrub in a little bit more and just kind of overall deepen in texture and area if I want to as I go up. I only want the individual trees down at the bottom. And I can also drag up some trees with my round brush. Like in front of the little rock masses there. And I can add a little bit of definition to the shadow in the water and just drag that down. That should have a little more blue in it for that. It's a little too green for water, I think. And I'm just going to blot that a little bit because I think I got it a little bit too strong there. Okay, so let me give this another look. I think I might want a little bit more kind of rocky texture up here, so I am going to go and make myself another gray. I'm going to use the cobalt. I'll actually mix it over here where you can see a little bit better. Cobalt blue, light red. Oh, that's a nice gray there. And I can go in anywhere that I feel like I want some more shadow and just kind of tap in some like shadows on a rock, some rough areas, some cracks, fissures in the mountain. And this would be your final detailing stage. So any details that you want to put in, you can do now.
Twigalina, what do you think of the new Winsor Newton paper and sketchbooks they have recently released? Is it any better than the older stuff they sold?
I don't know. Before, I think it's a lot of rebranding with them, because before they had the Winsor Newton Artist watercolor paper, which was 100% cotton, which is beautiful. It's very much like an Arches. And they had Cotman watercolor paper, which was a wood pulp, which it was okay. It wasn't that great. It didn't lift up very well. It was actually an awful lot like the Montville, but less sized. And I noticed that it kind of seemed to go bad after a while. Like it would you'd go and do your washes and you get little speckles and spots all over it. And it seems like the regular Winsor Newton paper is wood based. And then there's like a professional paper that's cotton. So you have to be careful what you're getting to make sure that you are getting cotton or wood based, depending on what you are looking for. The price might give it away, but sometimes Winsor Newton stuff can be kind of expensive, even if it's the student quality stuff. So you just want to make sure you know what you're getting. I have not tried any of the new versions. I've only tried the older stuff. So I think it's probably just a rebrand of those two products. But their professional paper was always really nice.
Anna Rose Brown, which of these three would you mostly use? Winsor and Newton, Cotman, Lucas, Aquarelle Studio, or Koi?
Oh, probably Cotman. Okay, and then I'm going to look and see if there's anything. Actually, I think I might lift up a little bit in this area here, just brighten it up a little bit. I'm feeling like this should be a little bit brighter. And I might go over it with a little bit of yellow too. But that looks a little dark to me. And here it looks a little dark. I like these new Menta scrubbers. They're very much like the Maxine's mop that I've been having a hard time finding in the 1/4" size. So if you do have an AC more nearby, they're, and they're $4 for $10, you really can't go wrong. But hopefully they'll have them online at different places soon. I keep checking Amazon to see if they're going to be there. Their yellow ochre is, this Mission Gold yellow ochre is super vibrant. So just be aware if you're getting those pure pigment colors that you may have to mix down a little bit. And I also think I'm going to take some of that gray that I made and come over here and do some texturing too, because I feel like this is just a little bit too bald looking. Get my angular brush. It's easier to do rocks when you have a brush that's shaped like that's got a hard edge, like an angle. You'll get a much easier time on those rocks. Use the brush that's shaped like the thing you're trying to paint. So if it was like a flower petal, you might want a round or a filbert, and if it's a rock, you're probably going to want something that's a little bit more angular. And I think I am going to put some ripples in the water, even though my reference photo doesn't have it. I think that would be look good. I'm just going to add a little Prussian blue to that gray that I mixed earlier. All these colors, they're kind of like, they're all very interchangeable. They're not going to, you're not really going to mess much up by adding a little bit of another color to it. It's like LuLaRoe. It goes with everything. If the leggings match the
Don't
tops.
talk to me about LuLaRoe. that racket. Ugh.
I don't have anything LuLaRoe, and I think it really seems like it's something to be right up my alley because I like leggings and comfy clothes all the time.
I have a thing about leggings and people who wear them all the time.
That would be me, Sarah.
I mean, whatever. I don't wear leggings unless I'm at my house. I'm not going anywhere. Leggings for me are like PJ pants.
Well, same here, but
and you don't wear PJ pants in public. Or you can wear leggings to the gym if you're going to go exercise. But exercise wear should not be worn as clothing. But I also don't wear PJ pants out in public, and some people are okay with that. And that's okay.
It's funny that leggings are such a hot topic. People are like very passionate about how they feel about leggings.
Yes. I mean, whatever people want to wear, it's no skin off my nose. I personally not that, I wear jeans, so I'm not, dressing up, but.
Well, I don't have any of those leggings, but I like leggings because I work from home and I'm comfortable, and I can wear leggings under my jeans because if I'm working downstairs, it's still very, very cold.
I have leggings, and I do wear them. If I'm going to a bonfire, I have some fleece-lined leggings that I will wear underneath my pants. Or if I am cold, I'll wear them. But there are people who wear them, that is all that they wear. But, hey, again, to each his own.
Yep.
It's what makes the world go round.
I like wearing leggings because I know I can hop right on the treadmill at the end of the day. I don't have to change. And then I can, it's like an all-purpose. But I wear them around the house, because I work from home.
Oh, I wear them around the house for sure. I mean, there are days I'm done with all of my responsible errands in town at 3 o'clock and my leggings are on until I go to bed. I don't wear them out of the house.
And I wear them with dresses. I like them with dresses. I basically dress like a 3-year-old. Colorful leggings and dresses.
Hey, to each their own.
And basically this part of the painting is just fussing around and, adding whatever you want to. So if you think that you'd like a little bit of a definition between the water and the mountains, you can use a gel pen or a white paint marker. I think I'm going to grab a gel pen because I think it might be less strong. Let's see if my gel, and I think my gel pen might be a little bit out of ink almost, so it won't give me a super crisp line. I don't want anything too bold, but I am going to go ahead and add just a little bit of a water line just to help bring that out, separate the land from the water a little bit. Just try to keep that line horizontal for the most part. And you could even add a little shimmer on the water if you wanted to. It gives a little sparkle. It's very pretty. And if you've got a painting like this without a lot of white, it can really bring a freshness back. And this is what's great about these gel pens that may have they'll be a little bit past their prime, or maybe you haven't used them very much, so they skip. Perfect for this type of thing, for getting just that really subtle shimmer. See, I can keep going back and forth, and it's just going to be spitting out little bits of ink, not a ton. Although if I went right up and down, I would get a solid line, so I have to be careful just to kind of let it graze on the side of the ball of the pen. And I'm just kind of letting it, not pressing hard, letting it skip along the surface. You can also, if you want to highlight any like of the rocks in the highlight areas, you can do that. And you could even go in with pen and ink if you wanted to. If you felt like you didn't have enough definition, you could do that. Any place you feel like you need to separate two masses of land, you can go in there with your white gel pen and just kind of pull them apart a little bit. I think this is done. What do you think, Sarah?
I think you could keep futzing, but then I think you would
overdo
it.
Yeah. Oh, you guys want to see the actual photo that I was working from?
Yes, people have been asking about the original.
This is the photo I was working from. It will find a link to it. It's from Unsplash, and I will link it up after the live stream. I don't think I can put them both in the camera at the same time, but you know, I'll just set mine down, have a good look at that, and then I'll put the photo on top. There you have it. A mountainy river sky. It was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did,
they did.
Oh, good. Well, give me a thumbs up before you go. That really helps my channel. Remember, no live stream next week. It is school vacation, and I'm going to take the week off too. And I think I have listed the supplies for the most part down below, except the Menta brushes, which are by Royal and Langnickel, but they are not sold online yet. AC Moore carries them, and hopefully your favorite store will have them as well, because I know AC Moore is just for us on the East Coast. Other than that, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.